I think it's safe to say that if you're immunocompromised, it can be problematic to figure out how to interact with family and friends. From where I sit, it doesn't seem like it's going to get better anytime soon. My own view is the common cold may be the best model for predicting the prevalence of COVID in the months and years to come. You may disagree, I don't know. But if you don't, I think it worthwhile to consider the following hypothetical question. How many people do you think will not catch a cold sometime in the next 5 years? I might answer that question, nobody. And the situation with COVID could actually be worse. From what I understand, COVID is a lot more infectious than a cold. I have another question for you. This one, not so hypothetical. How do you think most people catch COVID? The reality is most people don't catch COVID in a restaurant or a bar or at the grocery store. They catch it at home. One person gets it, brings it into the house, and it spreads throughout the family. And this is a problem if you're immunocompromised. Suppose someone in your household tests positive for COVID. What is it you plan on doing? Do you have a plan? If you don't, I would recommend developing one now. If it were me, and I realize everyone's situation is different, but if it were me, I would grab the bag I already have packed and leave the house immediately. In that bag, I would have a supply of masks and a box of COVID self-tests. And as soon as I could, I would administer a self-test. I'd want to know if I had COVID. If you test positive for COVID and you're immunocompromised, you're going to want to get therapeutic antivirals as soon as possible. And I think it's worthwhile to talk to your doctor about how that's supposed to happen. Most doctors, I think, will tell you that if you get COVID, you should call their office as soon as possible. The problem is, when you call their office, nobody's likely to pick up. It seems like nobody picks up anymore. You're likely to get voicemail, and you're going to hear a message that says something like, "We're sorry we missed your call. Please leave a message. We'll get back to you before the end of the day." If you get COVID, you're not going to want to wait around for hours for somebody to return your call. So I would talk to your doctor about what your options are. I would also confirm that you can get antivirals, and if so, where you would go to get them, what steps would be involved. For most people, I think, who are immunocompromised, it's safe to say that if they get COVID, they're going to be stressed out, if not panicked. So whatever you can work out in advance may buy you some peace of mind should it happen. One other thing to keep in mind, you may already be sick when you find out you have COVID, and you may not be thinking that clearly. So one other reason to have a plan. Suppose you take the COVID test and it comes back negative. Where are you going to go? For most people, I think the short answer is anywhere but home. One person gets COVID. After a few days, he tests negative. But in the meantime, he's passed it on to someone else, who passes it on to someone else. It could be a week or two before it cycles through the home. In the meantime, you need a place to stay. So I would contact family members or friends and try to identify in advance a place where you could go. If you can't, you might want to stay in a hotel. Failing that, you might want to go to a campground, which means you need a tent. If all else fails, you might want to live in your car. If you don't have a car, well, I'm kind of out of options, but I would try to think it through, figure it out, try to come out with the best options you can. Your best protection against COVID is not to allow it to get into the house in the first place. This is easier said than done if you live with other people, and for this reason I recommend that you have a conversation with your housemates about what your expectations are. Is it reasonable to ask others to wear a mask when in an indoor public space, when the prevalence of COVID in the community is high? A balance needs to be struck between your need to protect yourself and the need and desire of others to resume a more normal life. This is a balance that's not so easy to find. Suppose your son or daughter or spouse comes home with COVID one day, gives it to you, and you die. This is something they may have a hard time living with. They may never recover from the guilt. And so they decide to move out, not wanting the liability, which means you spend the rest of your life alone. I don't have a solution here or even a recommendation. I just think it's something that's best discussed in advance. What are your expectations? If you want or need to live with other people, I do think there are things you can do to mitigate risk. COVID is transmitted almost exclusively through the air. So someone who's infected exhales, someone else inhales and gets it. The question arises, what can you do to move exhaled air out of your living space? In the summer, when it's warm, it might be helpful to just keep the doors and windows open, creating a cross draft. In the winter, when it's cold, maybe you could install a system of fans that recirculates air outside. There are also portable air filtration systems with HEPA filters. They may be worth looking at. If it were me, I would not want to sleep with someone on a regular basis. Someone goes to bed, they feel fine, they wake up in the middle of the night with a fever and a cough. It's too late. If possible, I might want to carve out an independent or semi-independent living space, someplace I could go to when I'm concerned about COVID and the environment. I think I would want my own bedroom and bathroom if it were an option. If I was concerned about somebody bringing home COVID, I could hang out in my bedroom, and if I went to the kitchen or living room or other public area, I could wear a mask. I checked COVID statistics on the county website today. Cases are higher than they've ever been. The positivity rate is higher than it's ever been. And I think this is not hard to understand. People have stopped wearing masks and have resumed a more normal life. At the same time, hospitalization rates are near zero. I think this is not hard to understand either. Most people have been vaccinated. Many people have already had it. There's a lot of immunity that's built up in the population. So this is good. unless you're immunocompromised. I read a rather chilling statistic a couple days ago. Apparently, 1 in every 22 people who has died in the United Kingdom in the last couple weeks has had leukemia. Lest I am accused of being too negative, I wanted to leave you with a ray of hope. Cases are so high right now, it just seems to be everywhere. As a consequence, it may not be long before the virus has a hard time finding a home, and cases could drop dramatically. We could actually wind up with some form of herd immunity for a while. Going forward, there may be periods of time when it will feel safe to take risks and resume a more normal life. So, chin up, stay tuned.